everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host kushalmehra. It is my absolute honor to host Chandrachur Ghose today. Today we're going to be talking about Chandrachur's book 1947 to 1957 India, the Birth of a Republic. Now, let me give you guys a brief background. I've been reading Chandrachur's work for a while, and this is the first time we are actually met even digitally. Chandrachur has been following my work silently. I've been following his work silently. I've been reading his books. He's been watching my podcast, and I was so happy that finally this podcast got materialized. And I was telling him just now offline that I admired his work, especially when it comes to his great research on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And I want to start today's podcast by acknowledging that if it was not for him and his work and his activism, the declassification of the 10,000 pages in 2010 would not have happened. And by stating that and putting it on record, I want to welcome Chandrachur. Chandrachur, thank you very much for coming. And thank you for whatever you've done.
Thank you, Kushal. Namaste to all your viewers. And thank you very much for having me on your show. It does mean a lot. It's my pleasure and my honor too to be. I do follow your work. I have been following for quite some time. I follow you on Twitter, so get to know what you are up to. And I'm glad to be on your show and looking forward to your questions. I mean, the way you prepare, and I'm nervous, so I just hope that you are not going to grill me too hard.
अरे नहीं यार. See, the reason I do this, Chandrachur, is that I was having a conversation off the record with Hindol, and I told Hindol the same thing. I was like, "Yeah, you guys are serious authors. Whether it's you, Hindol, Vikram, many others." And Hindol told me it takes us a good 5 minutes to understand whether somebody has read the book or not. Because हमको पता चल जाता है एज एन ऑथर कि ये बंदा सुपरफिशियल क्वेश्चन पूछ रहा है कि इसने पढ़ी है बुक या नहीं पढ़ी है बुक, दैट काइंड ऑफ अ सिनेरियो. बट नाउ आई वांट टू स्टार्ट द now you have written before this, the books that you wrote were the Untold Story, right? Of an Inconvenient Nationalist. This was 2022.
Yeah.
Obviously this was on Subhash Chandra Bose. And now why did you decide to write this particular book? Now I'll caveat it with this question: why 1947 to 1957? Why this 10-year period, first of all?
Let me come to your first question. Why did I decide to write this book? Actually, my first book was Conundrum, Subhash Bose's life after death. So it was about the Netaji's disappearance mystery, which I wrote with my friend Anuj Dar. So in the declassification movement, Anuj and I have been working together from 2000. It's a long time now, 18 years or more than 18 years now. And we have always tried to understand. It has intrigued me why there was so much resistance on behalf of the government of India to let anything come out that is related to Netaji. What I mean, such a hero, such a man who got us our freedom, and he should be celebrated, widely talked more about. Instead, everything related to him was pushed under the carpet, and it intrigued me. So after I wrote Conundrum with Anuj, then of course the natural thing was to write a proper biography, because there are plenty of biographies on Netaji, but none of them actually go into the political dynamics, the intricacies of political dynamics with his colleagues, with the revolutionary organizations, that really asks the hard questions about his political choices, his alliances with the Axis power, and the way he chose to go against the Gandhian method. How much against Gandhi was he? So all these difficult questions needed to be answered properly. So once that was done with, I went back to this thing about understanding what was the political reason for suppressing Subhash Bose. That's the genesis. And then I realized that there are very, very few books which have actually taken a critical look from the period when the interim government was formed in 1946. And during that period, a lot of important decisions were taken. I won't say a lot of laws. Of course, some game-changing laws were made. The constitution was framed, and uh, the lay of the land was prepared during this first decade. The first decade ends with 57 because that's when the second general elections took place. So that's where I decided to stop to kind of with a review, with a performance assessment of the first properly elected government. Now, if you look at the process during this, the first 5 or 6 years of this 10-year period, from say 1946-47 till 1951, a lot of important things, very important things were decided and put in place by a government which was not representative, which was not properly elected. The electorate at that time, which elected the members of the state provincial legislative assemblies, was just about 1.5% or 1.1%, if I remember correctly. And the central legislative assembly was elected by just 0.5% of the population. That's too narrow electorate. When the Congress was talking about adult franchise, a full 100% might not have been possible in that short time, but it might well have been 50%, 60%. They could have tried. They decided not to. So a lot of things were happening, and this very restricted, with some technocrats, with some legal experts, and a very narrow cross section of the political class. They were framing policies which continue, and that is one side. And the other side is Nehru. This is a period when Nehru cemented his place as India's leader, and his constant urge to emerge as a global leader who would take the world on the path of peace and justice and love. So the world had to be conquered by peace and justice and love. The Gandhian dogma that was always in the head of the politicians and the bureaucrats also. So this was a very, very interesting, fascinating mix of ideas, personalities, clashes between them. Gandhi, this is the period when Gandhi disappears. Gandhi vanishes from the scene. He's assassinated. He is no more there. As soon as Gandhi leaves the scene, that Gandhian high command, that fabled Gandhian high command, starts falling apart. They move away from each other. Kripalani goes, Rajagopalachari goes, Patel and Nehru are almost on the verge of resigning. And so it's a very, very tense situation. And so many things happening at the same place, at the same time. The states are being reorganized. They are first unified, reorganized. Elections happening. So the whole election machinery coming in place. As soon as the constitution is ready, immediately the first amendment is rushed through. So this is a very, very interesting phase which needed a fuller look. And not any less important was the reshaping of the bureaucracy and the armed forces, because these are colonial legacies. So we need to look at how this was turned into a, whether at all successfully or not, into a national asset, or it still continued, carried the colonial legacy and the mindset. So all these factors, I thought, let me just concentrate on the first 10 years. Later years can be dealt with later.
Now, you know what fascinated me was one quote in the book you have shared. I'm going to read the quote directly. You say Ambedkar, while introducing the draft constitution, explained why the term, quote, union of states was preferred over federation of states. The direct quote is very important, from even from a concurrent, current
Absolutely.
perspective. And I want to read this. The drafting committee wanted to make it clear that though India was to be a federation, the federation was not the result of an agreement by the states to join in a federation, and that the federation not being the result of an agreement, no state has the right to secede from it. The federation is a union because it is indestructible. Though the country and the people may be divided into different states for convenience of administration, the country is one integral whole, its people a single people living under the single imperial derived from a single source. Why I found this very interesting is that even at the outset, there were some things that were etched firmly in our mind, because I think this was, in a weird way, the Indian drafters of the constitution's way of saying never again. We had one partition, never again. What do you make
Yeah,
of it?
yeah. See, I mean, there were various ideas, uh, but the ideas, the different ideas, the contrarian views that came up in the Constituent Assembly, it was very easy to shoot them down, because it was heavily dominated by the Congress party, and the Congress had its team which worked on the Constitution, on the draft, on the ideas, on the various stages of draft. The one that you read is from the final draft by the drafting committee, which was chaired by Ambedkar. Now, before that, various drafts were prepared. Some of those committees were chaired by Nehru himself, some by Sardar Patel, some by other legal luminaries. And they decided and came and debated. There were long speeches, but contrarian views were rarely accepted. They were always shot down. There was no serious debate. And when these kind of things, like one contrarian view, one Gandhian view that came up, there was a forceful argument in favor of India becoming a village republic. And Ambedkar was savage in his criticism, in his shooting down that idea. And I mean, this whole thing that India is united, unified. There are different provinces, there are cultures, there are different methods and practices in different parts of the country. That does not make the country into a conglomeration of splinters. It's a unified whole, and that's how it should be treated. So a lot of autonomy goes to different regions, but they are at the end of the day a whole. So this is something I seriously believe somebody should read out Ambedkar to Rahul Gandhi when he talks in the press conferences abroad, and he keeps repeating India is a union of states, as if it's a club where people have come and joined and on a signed agreement. So that's this inherent underlying spirit, and you are right is that the bitterness regarding the partition of the country was so much so deep that it would come out, it would find expression every now and then. Even someone as cool headed or level headed like Sardar Patel could not contain himself when he took a serious jibe at the Muslim League members of the Constituent Assembly when they joined much later, and shot down the idea of separate electorates or separate representations or reservations when he was dealing with all those things. So the idea was very, very clear that India is one country. It's a union. It's a union of states, because states have been there, provinces have been there. India is comprised of different cultures. That's what the provinces represent. And I mean, till the linguistic reorganization had still not happened, but the idea was very much there from 1930, from 1921. And that's one principle which the Congress had adopted at the very beginning when Gandhi had taken over Congress, when he rewrote the constitution of the Indian National Congress in 1921. So that linguistic reorganization idea was there. Idea was of course there. People accepted it, but the strange part is there are two things. One is the Indian National Congress went against practically all of its important ideas and objectives. They did a 180 degrees turn on practically everything. On complete independence, they accepted dominion status. Severing links with Great Britain, they joined the Commonwealth, British Commonwealth, and they were against partition. They accepted partition, and I mean, so on and so forth. There were many ideas which they stood for, and they moved back from it because of the convenience or because of the lure of power, if I may say so. I mean, bluntly, I have to be blunt, so I don't see any problem with that. But that's what made them, you know, compromise on their principles. That's one point. The second point is this is also the period, Kushal, when the culture of political leadership, political organization, and the culture of the bureaucracy was set down. And there, Pandit Nehru and Sardar Patel played the most important roles. To some extent, VP Menon. VP Menon was more the worker who did things for them, but the culture was set down by Pandit Nehru and Sardar Patel. That culture continues till today. Maybe it is eroding now after the beginning of the NDA government, Modi government. To a great extent, I see it eroding now, but the underlying current is still very strong. Letters are still drafted in the way letters were drafted in 1947. Bureaucrats, top level bureaucrats, write their letters the way Pandit Nehru used to start writing his notes. So their thinking, their world outlook, global outlook, national outlook, a lot of things became inherent from 1947 over the next seven decades. This became so much internalized in the political and the bureaucratic class, and consequently, because it was disseminated to the wider public, even the public assimilated it, and they took it as the normal, the natural thing. So that culture, it is a humongous task to break down that culture and make people see that there is an alternative, there are other possibilities. So my idea was also to look at how these cultures were established and start questioning them.
Now, for me, this book, for me, obviously, you have a dedicated chapter that you call Nehru Supremacy. Obviously, and that is a very interesting chapter in terms of how Nehru kind of set the tone. But what a lot of people may not know is where you quote Gandhi, that he had made up his mind in 1929 about Nehru. Now
Yeah.
that
Yes.
that that is something, again, I want to read that. You write Gandhi had made his choice known unambiguously when he had selected Nehru over Patel for the Congress presidency in 1921. In January 1942, he had declared, quote, I have always said that not Rajaji nor Sardar Vallabhbhai, but Jawaharlal will be my successor. He predicted when I am gone, he will do what I am doing now. A few months later, Gandhi clarified, quote, he, Nehru, has never accepted my method in its entirety. He has frankly criticized it, and yet he has faithfully carried out the Congress policy largely influenced by me. Those like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel who have followed me without question cannot be called heirs. And everybody admits that Jawaharlal has the drive that no one else has in the same measure. This really fascinates me. Like,
Yes.
so Gandhi saw Patel's dedication to him as a weakness?
Kind of. It's a subservient attitude. Probably that's the way he took it. And towards the final days of his life, when this whole fight was going on over paying Pakistan rupees 55 crores, and Patel had opposed it. Patel had stopped the payment, and at the same time, the clash between Nehru and Patel was at its peak. Gandhi had made a public statement that Sardar has stopped being my yes man. He used to be one, but he is no more. And after that, I have quoted Sardar's letter in this book, which is taken from Maniben Patel's book. And it's a tragic letter. It's a letter of a heartbroken man. It's I felt sad. I'm not a fan of Sardar Patel so much, but I mean, a man who had given his life to the ideals of one person, being run down repeatedly by that man, and forced to occupy the second position always, to play the second rung always, and then being uh, made responsible for things which were going wrong. It would have been very, very heartbreaking for him, and he was pretty advanced in age at that time. So it was towards the end of his life also. He survived just about 2.5 more years, and Nehru, towards Nehru, Gandhi had never any doubt that he would be the successor. He was the heir. Now, this uh, question, why Nehru and not Bose, I had dealt with in Subhash Bose's biography, where uh, both Nehru and Subhash were intellectually of the same predisposition. And they had similar ideas. They were both Western educated, modern, had a very modern reformist outlook, had similar economic reforms in mind. But Subhash Bose was a more pragmatic and had probably a broader worldview, thought more strictly in terms of India's interest, whereas Nehru was more abstract, whether it benefited anybody or not, whether the principles benefited anybody or not. Subhash Bose was focused on India's interest. India must think of her interest first. That was the slogan that he gave in 1939, which I keep repeating, that came back as Narendra Modi's India First slogan in 2014. And that is still that mantra which is being followed. So, but behaviorally speaking, Nehru differed from Gandhi a whole lot of times. But every time, all Gandhi had to do was to scold that, what are you doing? This is not the right thing. And Nehru has admitted it himself in his autobiography and later in life to a foreign lady journalist to whom he opened up and said that I was unfair to Subhash, and to me Gandhi was everything. I disagreed with him on so many points, but I could never think of leaving him and follow my own path. So I had to stick to him. But that is in my understanding, that is a very, very public explanation, although true, a very public explanation. There was a bigger explanation because all the leaders in the Gandhian High Command understood perfectly well that they survived as leaders when they were held together by Gandhi. And this becomes amply clear when Gandhi goes out of the scene. It's only Nehru that survives. The remaining, all of them, are nowhere in the scene. They are not capturing the imagination of the masses. They are not mass leaders. They are not making any politically impactful move. They are not coming forth with any game-changing policy or any movement as such. I must say it's with a heavy heart that the biggest disappointments that come out of this period are Jayaprakash Narayan and Ram Manohar Lohia, who could never make up their mind where to go and what to do.
Elaborate on that, because I think people should know about what JP and Loyaji were doing. Like, can you explain that with a few tangible examples?
Yeah,
Because that
sure.
was
I
going to
mean,
be my next question anyway.
see, the thing is that JP had a great amount of admiration for Gandhi. They had a long association, and he had genuine love and admiration for Nehru. Now, towards 1946, after the war ended and the leaders were out of prison and things were moving forth towards forming the interim government, uh, JP bargained hard for getting a lot of socialist leaders in the cabinet, which was refused by the Congress Working Committee. So he stayed out of the whole government formation thing. But at the political organizational level, in 1948, the socialist group in the Congress, they came out and formed a separate party, the Socialist Party, because they felt that they could not go with Congress anymore because Congress had a very strong presence of the right wing, led by Sardar Patel. And Sardar Patel and JP had a very strong hate relationship. They could not stand each other. Uh, and JP felt that Patel was taking over and was having a greater say in the organizational and policy matters, so chose to stay away. So, but even his love for Gandhi and for Nehru, his admiration for Gandhi and Nehru, stopped him from taking the movement, a mass movement, forward, even when he disagreed strongly over government policies. So there were a lot of political experimentation going on. So once Kripalani leaves and Prafulla Ghosh, another staunch Gandhian from Bengal, leave, they come and from the Krishak Mazdoor Praja Party. Then they merge, Socialist Party go and merge with them. They form the Praja Socialist Party, and so a lot of experimentation is going on. But that is not a unified, coherent party. It's kind of a khichdi. So it keeps forming and breaking, forming and breaking. So in South India, the party breaks away to form government. So it's a very interesting tamasha, but tamasha. The in this whole situation, in this whole scenario, JP was one person who had the fan following or the mass following who could emerge as an alternative, as a challenger to Nehru. He failed to fulfill that role. Ramana Loya was very scathing in his criticism of Nehru and his foreign policy and other policies in the country. But again, all these remained as verbal criticisms. They were never followed up in the form of a mass movement. They could never agree on what would be the form of the movement, what they should do, and how they could influence policy making within the government. As a result, what happened is this gap was left. This gap of a challenger to Nehru, if anybody could fulfill at this point of time, it was Sama Prasad Mukherjee. After he quit the government, after he quit the cabinet on the issue of migrants, refugees from East Bengal, he became an extremely staunch critic of Nehru, and he constantly badgered Nehru in parliament. He To back him up, he did not. He had quit Hindu Mahasabha quite some time ago. So to back him up, he started organizing similar thinking people and all. And I must tell you, this is interesting. BJP likes to call Shama Prasad Mukherjee as the founder of their stream of thought and Jansangh. Shama Prasad Mukherjee did not find Jansangh. He did not establish Jansangh. Jansangh was established by others. He was invited and he took the post of the president, first president. So Jansangh was not founded by Shama Prasad Mukherjee. That's absolutely wrong. Shama Prasad's party was had a different name. It was called, I think, Prajapati or something like that, or Democratic Workers Party or something like that. I'm forgetting the name at this moment. So the consolidation that was happening was on the right wing. Shama Prasad was a very capable leader, and he was consolidating the right wing movement against Nehru. And in 1951, I have quoted that later here in this book. Just before the first general elections, Nehru is writing to V.K. Krishna, and to him he says clearly that he is not worried about other leaders. They will break away, they will be defeated and all, but he is particularly worried about Shama Prasad and Jansangh. And that means something. Just before the first general elections, he is worried. He is naming particularly Shama Prasad as the challenger, and that role probably Shama Prasad would have risen even higher. It had probably become even stronger had he not died untimely under those mysterious circumstances. So Jayaprakash Lohia on the socialist side, the communists had gone completely on a different route, on a very, very aggressive oppositional route. And as a result, a lot of provinces were banning them. They were fighting. Bengal became the center of their agitational politics. Now, they lacked a national leader who could lead them into power or capture power or have a solid presence in parliament and the provincial assemblies. So they got hold of Subhas Bose's elder brother, Sarat Chandra Bose. Sarat Chandra Bose hated the communists, but for the electoral purpose, he agreed to give them a lead. So a lot of mixing was happening at this time, which is fascinating. And that is very essential to understand the political underpinnings of the current times, because I don't think we are talking, reading, or studying history here. These are things which are still part of our intellectual and mental baggage. We are still carrying them somewhere behind at the back of our mind, and it still defines the role of the different political groups that are still active now.
You know what is fascinating is, and I want to connect this to two instances. So in Vikram's book, he has shared some British intelligence cables about the RSS and how the British intelligence used to write about the RSS. And I'll connect it to your book. I'm just laying the ground from that book to this book. That the British intelligence folks say, yeah, we need to keep an eye on this damn organization. ये साले चुप चुप के काम करते हैं, and they are putting their people in every walk of society. And this intelligence cable is from when? 1930s, 1940s. Circa today, kind of right. The British intelligence got the RSS right. So they understood the RSS mind. And now I want to quote your book. So the presence of RSS in the state continued to bother Nehru. He wrote in a letter on 21st November, the RSS is an injurious and dangerous organization and fascist, the strictly technical sense of the word. We have known about it for many years, and some of our colleagues have been up against it for a long time. It is bad enough in Maharashtra where it originated. This is such a weird line. It is bad enough in Maharashtra where it originated, but the combination of RSS and Punjab has produced something worse. I don't know what the RSS has done in Punjab. I mean, it's very interesting. I have little doubt that we have to stand up against this. These they are very well organized, but extraordinarily narrow in their outlook and completely lacking in the appreciation of any basic problem. These guys were scared of the RSS. They were always scared of the RSS, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah. And if you notice, this letter was written in the thick of the invasion of Jammu and Kashmir. Nehru was worried that RSS is entering Jammu Kashmir and they are going to play a role in the valley and in the hills. So that is what he was so completely worried about, and he wanted to stop it by any means. And that's what worried him. And the timing is very, very interesting. It's fascinating. Why he would rather than being worried about the Pakistani army and the infiltrators and the National Conference, he is spending so much time on worrying about RSS.
And you know what the irony is? Now, I started my socio-political work in 2009-10. I've never hidden who I vote for, what I do in my life. Like, now it's been 7 years of podcasting. I've had a privilege of getting access to many people, different political outfits. I meet congresses, I meet AAP people, I meet RSS. These are the simplest people. Like, you meet an RSS person, they're so simple. And to give this level of Machiavellian thought to the RSS has never kind. I have never understood why these people actually are so scared of the RSS. Like, you go to any RSS meeting, you might end up concluding, yeah, these are a bunch of uncles who just say love your country. That's all it is basically. But the way they do it is so amazing that apparently it clicks. And instead of learning from them, the half of the time is spent on hating them. And now, when you read books like yours or books like Vikram's, you understand why they hate the RSS, because they looked at them not as a fascist force. That is just a bahana. They
Yeah,
were worried that they were the serious political answer to them.
they look at and this whole idea that this myth, this fallacy. I won't call it fallacy. It's a myth which has been very carefully created and nurtured. The two myths on which our national narrative has been standing for so long. One is that we won our independence because of Gandhiji's nonviolent methods, and the second is India remained democratic because of Pandit Nehru. So Gandhi got us freedom. Nehru made India democratic. These are the two narratives. I don't know how much of public money has gone into ballooning up these two myths. Now, any class 12 kid, I would say, if he reads carefully Nehru's letters and his works, one thing that would come out is that he was an intellectual. He loved dabbling in ideas. He loved speaking. He he loved writing pages after pages of letters. But as
And
a
he loved
leader,
himself.
yes, I mean that is there. I mean the number of references to his own popularity when he writes to Vijayalakshmi Pandit or Krishna Menon, it's amazing. He says that the Congress knows that they are nothing without me. People, of course, love me. People come to listen to me. So all that is there. I mean, but the one thing that struck me is as a leader in the political organization and as a leader in government, he was uh, quite intolerant of strong opposition. He might be accommodating to a certain extent, but once the challenge became serious, he would go to a great length to snub it. I mean, and there are multiple instances of having done that, Nehru having done that. And perhaps the biggest in the organizational area was compelling Purushottam Das Tandon to resign and practically grab the presidentship of Congress. So that aspect of his character, I think, is has been covered up pretty much by the Nehru files. We dominate still the academic side of our professional history writing. I'm glad that I'm not a professional historian, and I have no claim to academic excellence in history or anything. I just ask questions. I try to find answers. So that's my I keep digging. That's my expertise.
No, but let's talk about this even more on the subject of who gave us independence. Look, I'm not very anti-Gandhi. Like, for the record, I understand Gandhi had his flaws. Like, when I sit with my friends in the West at times, because now I live a very weird sort of a life. Like, I'm 4.5, 5 months I'm in North America. Then the rest of the time, 6, 7 months I'm in India. So I'm a thala आधा इधर आधा उधर kind of a life जी रहा हूँ. So when I talk to people in the West, like, I'm like, did you know Gandhi was an anti-vaxxer? They're like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, he had some cuckoo beliefs, like his opposition to railways, because, I mean, he had some absurd ideas. But I still understand. Listen, it was a marketplace of ideas. It was a battle of ideas, and Gandhi won fair and square. And you can't say गांधी ने मारा किसी को या बंदूक के नोक में किया. वो तो गांधी ने कभी नहीं किया. Yeah, he was stubborn. He would, self-inflict pain on himself. He had the worst idea. He would stop eating, and then he was like, oh, फिर से शुरू कर दिया. Oh, खाना नहीं खाएगा अभी. Oh, फिर से fasting शुरू कर दी. He had that weird sort of idea of doing it. But on the independence, it's like, how, yeah, let us spend some time on this. I know it may not be the moot point of the book, but I want to spend some time here. Why do you think this has happened, that only Gandhi got us independence? Why do you? I'm not saying Gandhi did not play a role in getting us independence. He clearly has. You cannot deny he did not play a role. Whether good or bad is a separate point, and we could, debate that till the cows come home. But I mean, without the naval mutiny, or without, Subhash Babu going outside and doing what he did, living outside India, and his pressure from outside India, we would never be where we are today, and that consciousness
Precisely.
in us. So, but why do you think this has
See,
happened?
so this has happened. There are two things. One is the fact, and the other is the narrative. Now, let me very quickly run you through the facts. Now, who got us freedom? That's a very silly question, actually. No one person can get us freedom. India is a huge country. The British Raj was a huge empire. No one person can get us freedom. No one can stand up and say, just you leave and they will leave. That doesn't happen. So there has to be a popular upsurge. And it was not possible. It did not come in one day. That popular awakening, awareness generation did not happen in one day. It took decades, and it happened gradually. And in that awakening of people, Gandhi played a huge role, almost a revolutionary role. When he came in, broke down the elitist nature of the Indian National Congress and made it a mass organization, went out himself to the different corners of the country, met people, energized them, told them about the method, whether you agree with it or not, the method of satyagraha, the idea to protest, that they had the right to protest. It created a wave. And what happened after that is the young generations come in. And Gandhi has done his work. He has reorganized Congress. He has made it a mass based organization. He has given new ideas, new tools, and people are enchanted with him. And of course, there is when we talk about politics, people often forget the role of religion also. He was, his persona was quasi religious, spiritual. And we live in a country when in the 21st century also Asaram Bapu has millions of followers. So Bapu to Bapu is not comparable, but the once you take the spiritual persona, it uh, spreads like wildfire. So among the less privileged people, there was this idea of Gandhi Baba. The Gandhi Baba can do anything. He can drive out the British. So in the building of his uh, image, his persona, all these played a very, very important role. And Gandhi was a great manager. He understood what we now talk about in terms of jargon, like succession planning, second rung leadership, and all these things we love to talk about in seminars and workshops. Gandhi did it in 1920s. So the moment he was there, up there, he had by that time his second rung ready. Succession planning had started. He had chosen Nehru towards the end of 1920s, but his second rung was intact till 1947. So, and he got things done through them. He delegation of responsibility. So he was a splendid leader, splendid manager, and probably India's best marketing guru. So whatever he did became an event. अरे लोग मोदी को गाली देते हैं आज कि ये करता है तो वो करता है, puts up such a show. Bhai Saab, he comes from the land of Gandhi. Gandhi was a greater marketing guru. At that age, when there was no mass media, हर घर का बच्चा बच्चा गांधी का नाम जानता है. How is it even possible? So they think very, very highly of him. He's an inspiration. By the image, people don't need to know. They didn't know. They didn't need to know. But the name itself became a symbol. But what after, I mean, now let's look at the last 15 years and try to answer this question. This awareness level had gone up pretty high. And events like the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, they played a huge role. After the civil disobedience movement had been withdrawn completely in 1934, Gandhi also kind of took a backseat and started focusing more on constructive work and anti-untouchability work, all those kind of things. But he always held the threads to the organizational maneuvering and political maneuvering and everything. Now, from 1932, when the movement was suppressed, the civil disobedience movement was suppressed, till 1947, there was no Gandhian movement till 1947, 15th August. Now, if Gandhian movement or Gandhian method had to was indeed responsible for our obtaining freedom, why did the British have to wait for 15 years? Because Gandhian movement was at its peak in 1932, which was suppressed. The next attempt was the Quit India movement 10 years later in 1942. Now, Gandhiji announced Quit India. And within the next few hours, the entire top rung of Congress leadership was in prison. Nobody had an idea as to what the Quit India movement program was. What were they supposed to do? Gandhiji only told them that behave as if you are free. I mean, that means nothing practically. Nobody had the gumption to just walk out and say, I'm free. But the arrest of the Congress leaders and the attitude of the British government, that made an impact of such an extent that the entire country, particularly the western area, Maharashtra downwards, and the eastern side, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, these two regions were on fire. To some extent, Punjab also. So what happened in the name of Quit India movement, which Gandhiji started, was absolutely un-Gandhian. Firstly, it was absolutely violent, which cannot be termed, called a Gandhian by any means. Secondly, after the initial repression, it went completely underground. And Gandhi had decried any movement that was underground. He wanted everything in the public, transparent, and had to be done in front of everybody's eyes. So it was as un-Gandhian a movement as it could be. So anybody trying to appropriate Quit India movement in the name of Gandhi is absolutely wrong. It was totally un-Gandhian movement. What happened was more like a revolutionary. And the leaders who were leading this, people like Jayaprakash Narayan and the other socialist leaders, I have seen the intelligence reports of that time, and they were seriously considering moving more towards the eastern side, anticipating the entry of the Japanese forces being led by Subhash Bose. So they were seriously being enthused by this whole thing. And at this time, the Communist Party, the General Secretary of the Communist Party, P.C. Joshi, was going to the office of the IB director and sitting there and giving him reports about what the anti-British movements were thinking, what was going on, spying on people closely connected with Netaji and the socialists. So this was the situation when the war was going on. By 1944, everything had come down to being completely quiet. No movement. Negotiations were there. Parleys were going on. Gandhiji was writing letter to Wavell, and Churchill was completely annoyed that why was Wavell even entertaining Gandhi. And he asked that why is Gandhi even there discussing politics? The doctor said that he's not supposed to live for too long. So who was the doctor? I mean, what kind of doctor did you get to check him? Why is he still there? So that was his level of annoyance. And Wavell, the one person to whom we give very less credit, and we are besotted with Mountbatten, it was actually Wavell who kickstarted the entire process. 1942, Cripps mission had failed, and after that there was no discussion, nothing, no movement. And by the way, I mean, Congress was against partition, but during the Cripps mission, the Congress Working Committee passed a resolution which accepted the principle of partition. So whatever Congress might say after that, Congress had in principle accepted division of the country in 1942. So this is not known to many people in our country because it's out of the narrative, out of syllabus. But anybody who wants to check, the Congress resolutions are there. I have reproduced in the book also. So come down to 1945. The leaders, the world, after due to Wavell's efforts, the Shimla conference happens, and the war has come to an end. Congress leaders are released. They start talking. The whole focus is on discussions and negotiations. No question of any movement. Suddenly, it comes to light. People get to know that there was something called the Indian National Army, and it was formed by Subhash Bose. And Subhash Bose and his army were fighting on the northeastern frontier of the country of India, and the Japan had helped them. And when Japan surrendered, these people have been captured and they are being brought back to the country, and they will be court-martialed. And a lot of people had already been hanged, so things were coming out. That's for the first time in towards the end, around July, August 1945, that people of the country get to hear of INA and Subhash Bose after 1941. So there is an automatic upsurge throughout the country, across the country. And the Britishers are shaken, and the Congress, which had still not found its ground under the feet, they had no program. The organization was completely shattered. They found the election issue. They completely grabbed it with both hands, and all the top leaders were still very much against Subhash Bose, but they knew that we have to tolerate, we have to praise him for some time, we have to praise the INA, and we have to defend them. And that will get us through the election because that will get us public support. It's clear. And this is supported by intelligence records, documents of the period. I'm not hypothesizing or I'm not speculating. And this happens, and as soon as the INA trials create that spate of riots and disturbances across the country, there is a revolt, a mutiny in the Royal Indian Air Force. Soon after that, the Royal Indian Navy rises in mutiny. And Royal Indian Navy, the people who started the revolt, they were clearly, B.C. Dutt's book is there for anyone who wants to read. He has clearly mentioned that they were inspired by the INA soldiers and Subhash Bose's activity in the Southeast. B.C. Dutt himself had been placed, deployed in the Southeast Asia, and he went there, saw it with his own eyes. He came back, talked to his colleagues, and these INA ratings, the sailors who were called ratings, they were very, very young people. They were 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And they were taken by storm by what they had seen, what they had heard, and the insult of the British superior officers just gave them a trigger, and they went into a complete revolt. This revolt was put down by treachery. The two people or three people who put it down were not British administrators. They were Sardar Patel, Pandit Nehru, and Mahatma Gandhi. They assured them that no action would be taken against them. They would be recruited back and all. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you're so unhappy with your job, why don't you go and find another job? As if it was a question of job. He even refused to see into the spirit of the movement. So that was the level of antipathy towards anything associated with Subhash Bose and the INA. But on the face of it, they had to keep that momentum. Pandit Nehru formed the committee of INA defense. He put on the gown. Everybody says that Pandit Nehru went to Red Fort trial and defended INA. He never spoke a word. Everything was done by Bhulabhai Desai. So all this is happening when the country is practically sitting on a volcano. That is when Attlee decides to send the cabinet mission to work out the modalities of forming the new constitutional and transferring power. So in these 15 years, someone show me a single Gandhian movement initiative which could have triggered or which could have motivated the British government to leave so quickly.
In fact, on the contrary, I would say it was only the Gandhian. The reason the British would always put Gandhi in the front was they felt that's the only way they can elongate their stay in India, not reduce. I mean, people might not agree with me, but I think the Gandhian method was the only way they could have survived.
There were only a handful of people they would talk to. They would not talk to everybody. And they knew who would support them, who would be beneficial and all. So the whole irony and tragedy is 1946. There is a huge potential of mass movement. The country is ready for a lead. The Congress does not provide the leadership, but the
Mhm.
alternatives, the communists and even JP Lohia, they also fail. And the whole mass movement, that way they could things they could have achieved, it falls flat, and the entire independence is transformed into a palace intrigue of transfer of power, which happens in Shimla Viceroy's palace.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that is a big, big tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the, I think we could write a series of books just on that period of 1930 onwards to 1955 and some of the foundational issues of India that India grapples with as a nation. The every nation has an identity, right? And the biggest tragedy of India is, what is the Indian identity? Like
Exactly.
um, and a lot of this debate actually showcases, like you made such a great point that Gandhi was able to reach the mass level that he did was because he added religion. People don't realize,
Yep.
like, even Pew polls today in India, they clearly indicate that India is an extremely religious society. And if you want to rise in India, you have to add that little bit of spirituality as the garnish on top if you want to become
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a political force in India. And irony of irony is that the Congress party today, the reason it is not doing well politically, and I say this to so I meet people who are part of the Congress, and I tell them, I was like, do you realize you come across as anti India? Because even today, whether you like it or not, India is majority Hindu. Now, you may assume
Yeah.
Hinduism is bad, but Hindus don't think Hinduism is bad. Now, how do kind of juxtapose this problem? And then you read the historical documents, and then you read what Nehru had to say. Then you like i- these things start falling in place, and a lot of this uh, is because of the foundational issues in India. But yeah, we are slowly coming out of it. We are finding answers to our identity as a nation. We are solving these. But before I wrap it up, Chandrachud, first of all, if I was to ask you, yeah, as the last passing question, when you were researching for this, what was the one moment that left you flabbergasted?
Well, it's there are too many to select one. One, I just told you that the passing of a mass movement into a palace intrigue where just one person is sitting with the viceroy and deciding the fate of the country, and without any other representation. Plans are being made, plans are being broken, they are being reshaped. Between that one single representative and the entire country is completely in the dark. What is going on there? That's one thing which disturbs me. There are too many of them, but I mean, otherwise, I mean, if I have to talk about it, it's uh, the way Jammu Kashmir problem was dealt with, the exile of Maharaja Hari Singh, and the way it was done, the way the constitution of Jammu Kashmir was informally first framed and talked about. When I have used a quote by Sheikh Abdullah, where he is clearly saying that now that Pakistan has invaded, where is the question of deciding a vote to decide whether we should go to Pakistan or India? Pakistan is invaded. India has defended. So, what changed so quickly that the question of a referendum still lingered on, has lingered on, and has remained the center of the problem till now? And there are too many unknowables in that whole equation. And Pandit Nehru's, I mean, another characteristic trait of Pandit Nehru was he to the people to whom he opened up completely. The people whom he put his faith on, he trusted them blindly. And there were very few, of course. There were people like V.K. Krishnaman to whom he would completely open up, share his inner thoughts and everything, despite V.K. Krishnaman being what he was. And of course, to his sister, Vijayalakshmi Pandit, that one can understand the way he explained his thoughts, his emotions, and everything, what he was going through. But all of us, I mean, I wouldn't say all of a sudden, but this extreme vote of confidence and trust that he was showing towards Sheikh Abdullah at that critical point, I find that a bit strange. I mean, it's not a normal political relationship. Why? What had he seen in one particular individual so much that he would be ready to leave the fate of an entire region on the hands of one person?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I think it's deeply disturbing, and boy, are we paying the price for that even today. That damn
Yes,
noose around our neck, and one of the things, like, one of the successes of the Modi government, I would say, is how 370 has been finally gotten rid of, and we are
definitely.
slowly making things normal. I mean, I have many criticisms of the Modi government. This would be one praise. The way they've handled the Kashmir issue, I think, is praiseworthy. But Chandrachud, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, man. I had so much fun reading this book. I learned so much, and what I love is that you come as a very, you rightfully said, you have an outsider's perspective, right? You are a serious nerd, but you are not part of the establishment. So when you come, you give a refreshing look. So I had so much fun reading your books, and this one was
Thank
the
you.
same. So all I can say is I look forward to your next one now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Kushal. It's a pleasure talking to you.
All right, guys, we'll wrap today's discussion up. But before we wrap it up, I want to tell everyone, not only this book, I would recommend you guys to buy all of Chandrachur's books if you have not read them, because I think there is like a series to it. So if you read the previous ones, you will kind of understand this one, because bits and bobs are picked from one to the other. That is the way Chandrachud has written these books. So if you have not, I would say even buy the previous ones. But if you have, then you will see the link to buy the book in the description of the podcast video if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or Audible or whatever, iTunes or wherever you guys are listening to it. You will find a link there too. Go buy the book. It is a fantastic read. And as you guys know, this podcast is, I don't do ad reads. Why don't I do ad reads? Is because I'm too heterodox in nature, and they say you cannot talk about religion in India. Apparently, नहीं तो jail हो जाती है. Well, I will talk about religion. Jail हो जाए तो हो जाए. I am the way I am. I can't change my nature now. So, this podcast literally survives because of members like you, the current ones, and the members who may become ones in the future. So, if you can, please support this podcast, whether on YouTube or on Patreon or on Fanmo, wherever you are a member, and keep, you know, helping me in this endeavor to think out of the box, talk about things that maybe are boring for some people, but I still persist. Like, recently you must have seen my podcast on the insolvency and bankruptcy code. Of all the things I was discussing, a policy of 2016, because I read the book and I loved that book. And that's what I do as a podcaster. I became a podcaster accidentally. I was just a guy who read a lot. And then one day my wife told me, "तू मुझे बहुत बोलता है, तू जाके दुनिया से बात कर." That's literally the starting point of this podcast. You bore me, go bore the world. So now that you guys are there, so deal with it, but keep supporting the Charvak podcast. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're on audio platforms, just leave a rating there. I will go on doing what I do, and I'll see you guys next time with another interesting discussion. Until then, namaste. Take care. Bye bye.